Hey there, EB here on the Anything But Bland weekly update. Thursday night, about to watch some of the Olympics after I finish this presentation. Really excited about the Olympics. I'll talk about them later. I think I enjoy the Winter Olympics more now than I did the Summer Olympics, and I think a lot of it is due to the fact that I ski a lot during the winter. And growing up, I didn't do it. Growing up, I always liked the Summer Olympics, but I'm really enjoying the Winter Olympics, and obviously, I was there a couple weeks ago in Val Gardenia and went over near Cortina, so the area is pretty familiar with me. But let's start off with the shot that was heard around the world yesterday. The Alex Murdaugh appeal was argued before the Supreme Court. I did a whole special on that yesterday for about 28 minutes, so you can listen to that. I think it's probably on either my Facebook or it's on X or YouTube. But it was a complete shock to me the way that the Supreme Court felt, and the questions that they asked were clearly slanted towards Alex Murdaugh and his lawyers, much, much harder against the state. I always thought that the Sixth Amendment issue of the juror interference by Becky Hill was going to be an issue that may cause the Supreme Court to pause. I never thought they would end up siding against their former Chief Justice, Jean Toll, who ruled that there was not enough juror interference and that it didn't affect the verdict that was rendered for the conviction of Alex double murder for murdering Maggie and Paul, his wife and son. But obviously, the Supreme Court justices do not have a lot, probably affinity for Justice Toll because they laid the hammer on her. They also came down hard on Judge Newman on the introduction of the financial crimes that I had a big role in with my partner Ronnie Richter, representing six of the victims, including the Gloria Satterfield, the former housekeeper for the entire family. And also, we're critical of Judge Newman admitting testimony in connection with bullet casings as well as the phone. So go watch my video on that. I believe there's going to be a reversal and a remand for a new trial, which I think probably we should see the opinion sometime late spring, early summer. And I think they're going to have to appoint a judge, obviously, who is not conflicted. A lot of the low country judges um, are conflicted out or conflicted themselves out due to the relationship with the parties involved. And so I think we're going to see a trial probably in the summer of 2027 or fall of 2027 at the earliest. So let's get started. I want to start with um, really something that's really bothered me. I know you guys are going to say, oh, you're always hammering Trump. And yes, I am because he's in the news 4 or 5 times a day. Dominic Chianti, hello, good evening. And also Diane McFarlane, I'll talk to you guys after I'm done before I sign off. But there is a lot of news with Donald Trump, and it's not good news. When he retweeted or sent off a meme that was done showing Barack and Michelle Obama, one as being an ape and the other as being a monkey, it pretty much was one of the most offensive things that I've ever seen done in connection with the president of the United States by the president of the United States. And I know, the spin that they want to give is that Donald Trump only read the first part and it was about the stolen vote that he still maintains. He won the election in 2020, even though we know he didn't, even though that 61 courts have rejected any bit of evidence, and all those, half of those courts were Trump judges. Um, he said that it was a staffer. He forwarded it to a staffer who reposted it, and that Trump only watched the first part of the video. Well, one, I don't believe it. I think it's complete and utter bullshit. Trump has every time he sends something out that's offensive, he tries to blame it on a staffer, or I didn't see it, or that's not what happened. Well, if it was a staffer, The staffer should have been fired immediately. And as of today, Trump was asked, have you taken a scalp? Because somebody's scalp should have fallen for that. And didn't happen. He said, nope, haven't fired anybody. In fact, when it happened, they left it up for 10 hours. And Carolyn Levitt, the press secretary, she didn't say from the start that Donald Trump didn't know about this. She was outraged at the media who were she accused of making fake outrage over this. To insinuate that African Americans are apes or primates, regardless if they're the president of the United States or even homeless person, is the most disgusting thing in the world. Um, I was mortally offended because being Jewish throughout history, there's been a lot of trope and memes about Jewish people and money and different things. And, you know, Jews have always been singled out. During the Holocaust, they had to wear their own Jewish star as a patch to let them know that they were a Judah. Um, for Tim Scott to have come out as strong as he did, he endorsed Trump. He was a potential vice presidential candidate. And he said that uh, Trump is wrong for what he did. He said it was the most racist thing he's ever seen come out of a White House, including this White House. And he said, I certainly hope it was fake, and I certainly hope the President of the United States had nothing to do with it. Um, let me tell you what Trump has done to Tim Scott. He's kicked him to the curb. He used him. There was never a chance that Tim Scott was going to be the vice presidential candidate, but everybody thought that Tim Scott possibly could get a very serious look at a cabinet position. Never once was. Trump has dumped him uh, like an old sack of dirty socks or a trash bag. And Tim Scott has also come out and said that he supports Susan Collins in her reelection. And remember, Susan Collins is an antagonist to Trump. Trump is supporting her opponent because Susan Collins voted for his impeachment, the same way that Bill Cassidy, Republican senator, did from Louisiana. So it's really the most disgusting thing I have ever seen. I don't know why more Black people haven't come out and talked about it. And if it's true, which I don't believe, that a staffer did that, then they should be fired. And Trump is not firing anybody. Um, Pam Bondi's performance yesterday in front of the House Select Oversight Committee was vulgar. I have no other way to say it. She is the most disgraceful, worst attorney general in the history of the United States. It's not even close, folks. What she has done uh, in connection with the Epstein files and her continuous attempts to prosecute Trump's enemies and losing. Either grand juries are not indicting, and we know that a grand jury can indict a ham sandwich. They are rejecting the indictments, whether it's against Letitia James or James Comey. Yesterday, she tried to indict six sitting senators who actually said that you in the armed forces do not have a duty to follow unlawful orders. Rather, you have a duty not to follow unlawful orders. The same thing that Pam Bondi said when she was the Attorney General of Florida, and Pete Hegseth, what he said when he was with Fox News in 2015. It's a do as I say, not as I do kind of thing. Well, the grand jury yesterday decided that they were not going to indict, which is unbelievable. Well, in order to prevent the judge shopping or prevent grand jury shopping, today a George Bush appointed Republican judge entered a preliminary injunction prohibiting the Justice Department from trying to indict these six sitting senators because of their First Amendment rights. Good for this judge. good for the rule of law. Remember what I said in the Alex Murdaugh case. The Sixth Amendment is a righteous amendment. It applies to everyone. And the reason our justice system is the best in the world is because it only doesn't just apply to the best of us, it applies to the worst of us. And we both get the same treatment, the best and the worst. Um, it was stunning to me. And then this kind of goes into on the heels of that retweet of the racist trope against the Obamas, the National Prayer Breakfast last week, the speech that Trump gave was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen in a religious atmosphere. One, um, he talked about the stolen election. He called Thomas Massey, the representative from Kentucky, who is going forward on this Epstein stuff with Ro Khanna from California, the Democrat. He called him, Thomas Massey, and Rand Paul morons. Massey fired back and said, damn right, I'm voting right now. When you get us tangled continuously in foreign wars, you go back on your word that you were going to focus on the economy in America first. And all the grifting that you've been doing, making money for you and your family since you become president, and your unwillingness to go after sex traffickers and the Epstein stuff and comply with the law that you signed. Yes, I'm against you. Trump used foul language at the National Prayer Breakfast. And guess what? He finally admitted that he's never read the Bible, folks. Remember, he held up the Bible upside down in his first term and said his favorite passage is Corinthians, one of the passages in Corinthians. It was all bullshit. He finally admitted he's not religious and never read the Bible. And yet he's talking at a prayer breakfast. Um, it's really something to me. Pam Bondi, her performance that she did yesterday, the abuse that she hit, that she tried to level at some of the House members. She called one of the members from Maryland, who is a former constitutional law professor, constitutional scholar from Harvard University, a washed up would be fake lawyer. She tried to humiliate a Jewish member of the House of Representatives and called her anti Semitic. And the lady said, anti Semitic? I lost a grandfather in the Holocaust. Um, when Jamala Propali from Washington, who's not somebody I like, by the way, I'm not a big member at all, big follower or supporter of the squad that she's a part of. But she said to Pam Bondi, behind you, are some of the victims of the Epstein saga. Some of the women who've grown up that were raped as underage girls. I want you to turn around and apologize for them because when you released the 3 million documents a couple of weeks ago, it was already a month and a half late after the law said that they had to be released on December 31st. She said, can you apologize to them for not redacting out the victims' names that you guys released? And so now these victims are outed, some who didn't want their names out there. Pam Bondi looked straight ahead. She started talking about the Dow because it's over 50,000 and all of the arrests of undocumented visitors that in our country that have been arrested. Let's talk about that. Only 14% of those that have been arrested and deported had a criminal record. I know they want to say that everybody's a rapist, a murderer, and a drug dealer, but only 14% of the people that have been picked up and deported or picked up and put in an ICE detention center right now have a criminal record. So that is not the case. Pam Bondi has debased the Attorney General's office and the independence of the Department of Justice. She's lost more staff lawyers than any of the previous 5 attorney generals throughout their tenure. She's lost them within her first year. She's lost more staff members than the last five attorney generals put together during their entire term. She will go down as the worst attorney general in the history of our country. I think she's going to be impeached before it's over with. I also think that there's going to be possible uh, disciplinary proceedings against her law license in Florida for what she has done to try to manipulate the Justice Department. It's stunning to me. Howard Lutnick, he's a scum, okay? He's been a scum since Cantor Fitzgerald when he promised all of the surviving family members of the um, employees' families that died, the employees that died in 9/11. Remember, he was at his son's school. It was fortuitous, but pretty much the entire company got wiped out. And he promised that he was going to send every kid to college and he was going to take care of these families for the life. He didn't do it. He went back on his word. Turns out he's an Epstein freak. Um, he said that he never saw Epstein again after 2005. Oops, not true. 2012, he went to Epstein Island. Yes, he went with his family and kids. 2015, more. He is not fired. Nothing has happened to him. We do know that Prince Andrew is now Andrew Wambatten. He's no longer a prince. That's been stripped of him. We know somebody in the prime minister's office in UK, he had to resign because he was close to Epstein. Every other country has taken out their leaders, but not Pam Bondi hasn't done a thing. You know what? There isn't an investigation open. There isn't a prosecution taking place of any of these pedophiles, any of these men that abuse these women. It's male dominated, folks, and nobody's getting investigated. Um, Todd Blanche, what a joke. He's the deputy. He said, we're not going to investigate anybody because it's all just rumors. It's not rumors. These women are coming forward. They're putting their hands on the Bible and saying they were raped. They have names, they have pictures, there's everything. They can give you dates and times of all these people that did it. It's a disgrace that we have not an investigation being done. And this was supposedly a Republican talking point of MAGA, huge MAGA stuff. It means so much to the people like Marjorie Taylor Greene. And look. I am not a Nancy Mace fan. God knows that. I've sued her for one of my clients. I rip her to shreds every time she deserves it. But when she does something right, I'm going to acknowledge it. And good for you, Nancy. You know what she said? It's a cover up today. She said it's a disgrace that this administration is misogynistic against women. She said she cannot understand how no one is being investigated or no one is being prosecuted. Do I want her as my governor? Hell no. But good for you, Nancy. Good for you standing up because she was one of the people that voted as a Republican to have these Epstein files um, released. We also learned today that the Gallup poll that's been doing polling for presidential elections since the 30s has stopped. I guess they've stopped because the public doesn't really respond to polling. You know, who is answering the phone to respond to the pollsters? Because they've certainly got it wrong since 2015 on the presidential election, on Trump's popularity. Right now, he's at a 37% approval rating, the lowest in the history of any president at this time in their administration. But I don't know if we can believe it because he has outperformed polls his entire political career since 2015. Um, Commerce Secretary again, Harold Lutnick seems to be getting a free pass on the uh, Epstein files. House Speaker Mike Johnson failed to secure the votes um, on a ban on tariff votes that Trump sought. So the House is against Trump's tariffs, whether it's going to get ultimately passed by the Senate and then be veto proof. with Trump, don't know. But the fact that there's splintering that's taking place with the House Republicans is pretty amazing. Um, so Trump also showed that he is um, uh, trying to support Savannah Guthrie's mother, Nancy Guthrie. I applaud him for that. Thank you. Thank you. It's the most troubling thing, one of the most troubling things for an 84-year-old lady to be kidnapped, blood on the front porch. They released a door cam video yesterday of a guy that was in a mask with a certain backpack and black gloves on. He did have a gun. They've searched the septic tank, some of the deer cameras nearby. They found two black gloves today and some other evidence. It's really, really sad. The kidnapper or the hostage people want to be paid in Bitcoin. It's been 12 days. I'm sure she doesn't have all of her medicines, and the more it goes on, the less uh, chance that she's still alive. And so I'm very, very sad for the Guthrie family. Um, the GOP House majority now has shrunk to one vote after Democratic Representative Kristen Manafly is sworn in. So we're seeing all over the country in special elections in Texas, where Trump won a district by 15 points, the Democrat in the special election just won by 20 percentage points. Um, Trump admitted that there is a special kind of bomb that was um, unleashed in Venezuela when they went to get Maduro. He called it a discombobulator, which is a similar description to the Cuba bombs that make people disoriented, affect their hearing and their equilibrium. Um, it is unbelievable to me that he would actually admit that we have that kind of weapon. Um, Attorney General Pam Bondi again was left stammering after she was confronted about President Trump's claim that she was the one who insisted that Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard go to the execution of the search warrant in Fulton County, Georgia, to confiscate the voting machines from the 2020 election. She looked like she was deer in the headlights. She didn't confirm that. I suspect that that's just Trump um, putting the responsibility on that on someone else instead of him cowardly not accepting responsibility. Remember, he was put on the phone during the execution of that search warrant and talked to Tulsi Gabbard, who had no reason to be there whatsoever because it's not within her jurisdiction. It doesn't concern national intelligence. Um, in December, President Trump directed the Department of Justice to fast track the rescheduling of cannabis, a move that could open the doors for research and cut red tape and business for consumers. Within a month and a half, that was shelved. So people who use gummies like I do when I'm in Colorado because I have insomnia, and because after 12 orthopedic surgeries, I will not take pain pills, and I still am in pain. So I do CBD. Um, it is unbelievable to me that he touts something and then no sooner does he tout it that it's done. By the way, where are those $2,000 checks that he promised? And Scott Bessent, his right hand lap boy, who wipes his butt too, wipes Trump's butt every chance he gets. Where's that $2,000 check? Um, I have never seen, you know, Melania Trump come out and talk about the Epstein victims. I would think as a woman, she would do that, but nope, nothing is being done. She hasn't spoken about it. All the women, whether it's Pam Bondi, Carolyn Levitt, everybody in Trump's orbit, nobody seems to care about the victims. Nobody seems to care about that Epstein um, had relationships with Russia and foreign governments and all the powerful people in this country. Um, it is stunning to me. So it was Raskin was the House member who is from Harvard that she said in one exchange with him, "You're a washed up loser lawyer. You're not even a lawyer." Unbelievable to me. Um, so the Republicans in the House are sick of Trump's tariffs. That's a real problem. And when the Supreme Court comes out and they overturn those tariffs, that is going to be a major blow to Trump's entire economic plan. Um, the National Governors Association has an annual meeting every year, and then the president invites them to the White House. This year, he disinvited Wes Moore, the nation's only black governor, from the National Governors Association. Dumb. Just like he made fun of the Obamas, blacks. Dumb. Just like he alienated Tim Scott, black. Dumb. Just like he's alienating a black governor. Black voters are 14% of the voting people. They show up in droves. And Trump did very well in 2020 with the black vote. Ghislaine Maxwell said she's going to plead the Fifth Amendment, and that is exactly what she did in her upcoming deposition. She claims that there are 26 well known people that cut inside deals to prevent from being prosecuted in the Justice Department. She's also saying if you give me a commutation of my sentence, that I will say that President Trump and President Clinton didn't do anything untoward in the entire Epstein saga. Can we believe this woman? I don't know. There were 5,300 references to Donald Trump in the Epstein files that were released. There were 2,900 that referenced Steve Bannon. As far as late as 2018, Bannon was in contact with Epstein and said, "Let me be the PR person to try to rehabilitate your image." Um, there was a letter from Trump's attorney general that just killed the DOJ's own case in court because in the letter, Bondi said, do not take information about federal workers. So here's what happens. She said to a lot of these Democratic states, I will make sure ICE doesn't come into your state if you turn over the voter rolls. But she said, if you turn them over, don't turn over the voter rolls of the federal workers. And therefore, it's done. She just targeted and said that she wants to go after certain types of people, but not other types of people. So far, no state has been forced to turn over their voter rolls. We know what they're trying to do. They're going to try to manipulate the midterm elections, either cancel them, restrict them, postpone them, but it's not going to happen. Six House Republicans broke with Trump and the Republican Party and said no to tariffs on Canada. Very interesting. Jeffrey Epstein's former cellmate came out and said that Donald Trump wanted the pedophile dead and exposed him to violence on purpose. So it's an extraordinary, extraordinary allegation. I want to know if that is being investigated. The Democratic Secretary of State for Maine said that Pam Bondi wrote her and the Minnesota Secretary of State and said, if you give us your voter rolls, we'll get ICE and DHS out of your state. Obviously, they said no today. Tom Holman, though, announced that they're going to draw down all of the ICE troops out of Minnesota and Minneapolis. Good for them. Um, the federal judge in New Jersey has ordered the Trump administration to restore funding for a new rail tunnel between underground water tunnel between New York and New Jersey to help with the congestion. Um, the ruling said, look, these funds have already been allocated. The construction is set to begin. Contracts have been awarded. Guess what Trump said? The only way I'll release these funds to Senator Schumer is if you name the tunnel after me and you rename Penn train station after me. Folks, enough is enough. I talked previously about naming things after living people before their lives have ended, and I gave the example of Joe Paterno, who I loved, throughout my childhood and adult life up until the Sandusky matter. You can't name buildings after people or bridges or train stations until they die because we just don't know how the story's going to end. And it's enough already of Donald Trump trying to put his name on every single thing in this country. Um, Today, a federal judge ordered the Trump administration to facilitate the return of Venezuelan citizens that were illegally removed from the United States. FBI Director Kash Patel has personally ordered local prosecutors to cease investigating the death of Renee Good because he feared it would contradict what President Donald Trump said was his version of the killing. This was a New York Times report last Saturday. Uh, Donald Trump said he will not allow a bridge connecting Detroit, Michigan, and Windsor, Ontario to open until the United States is fully compensated for everything, further expressing his frustration about the possible Canada China deal over electric cars. He said that China will terminate um, all ice hockey being played in Canada. That's what Trump said. So he's holding up a bridge that has been inspected. It's called the Gordie Howe, who's one of the greatest hockey players that ever lived, played until he was in his 50s with Professional Hockey League. The Gordie Howe International Bridge. It's 4.6 billion, a 1.5 million dollar infrastructure project that was approved in 2014. The six-lane bridge, expect to open in early 2026, will be one of the largest ports of entry in North America, designed to improve traffic and border security. And what does Trump do? Puts a stop to it. Um, Between two of Donald Trump's favorite prosecutors came to a head at the start of the year when Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, the president's former personal lawyer, removed firebrand Ed Martin, who was another favorite of Trump. Ed Martin was put in charge of pardons, and you remember, for government overreach for the lawfare that Donald Trump claims that was done to him. Todd Blanche even said, "This guy's a bridge too far," and he fired him. Very, very interesting. Um, the White House has learned, and this is a good thing. So don't think that I only talk bad about Donald Trump. This was a good thing. I think the launching of the discount drug site Trump RX, I don't like the name, offering GLP-1 weight loss drugs and other medications at cheaper rates was brilliant. Good job, President Trump. Good job for doing that, and I applaud that. Um, Turns out that Donald Trump saying that he called the Justice Department to report Epstein in 2006 may not be true. Just another, alternative set of facts of Donald Trump, how he likes to say it. There's zero record of it. They've searched throughout the Department of Justice, his own Department of Justice, and they have no record of it. His tariffs last year cost the average American family $1,000 last year, according to new research from the Nonpartisan Tax Foundation. And as I've told you before, this year, 80% of the tariffs are now going to shift to customers, and only the manufacturers and importers are going to pay 20%. Whereas this year, the manufacturers and importers were paying 80% and only the customers 20%. The cost is expected to go up even higher this year to $1,800 per household, assuming that the existing tariffs stay in place and not are reversed by the Supreme Court. Cuba. Cuba's in big trouble. Again, good job, Donald Trump. I applaud him for this. He's cutting off their oil supply. Airplanes are not allowed to refuel there. They don't have enough refuel to give them. Planes flights are being canceled. There's electrical blackouts because there's not enough fuel. Cuba's going to die on the vine. Trump's right. I don't give them until maybe the summer or fall of 2026. So that's a good job too. South Carolina is leading the nation in measles. There was an outbreak at Furman University this week. It's a very contagious disease. Thank you, Bobby Kennedy. While I agree with Bobby Kennedy on uh, the food issues that he wants to get at and some of the other things. I am totally against his vaccine policy. Um, let's go on. Um, Steve Bannon has sounded the alarm on his podcast saying that the MAGA base is getting fractured. It's no longer a cohesive base. There's different factions of it. They're disenchanted. And there is a tremendous lack of enthusiasm for Trump for keeping these Republicans in power in the midterm, um, which is amazing to me. Um, the Ohio Speaker of the House, Matt Huffman, who's a Republican, he came out and said, I am rejecting President Trump's push to federalize elections. Remember, folks, Republicans for 100 years have said, no more federal government intervention in the states. Let the states do what they want. Let this state do, have a pro life, or this state have a pro choice. We're not going to get involved. But now that it's an issue that could affect his getting impeached, affect the next 2 years of his term, affect Republicans from having the majority in the House and Senate. Um, they want to federalize elections. Lisa Murkowski has come out against Trump's election bill. She's a Republican in the Senate. It's never going to get passed. She gave a warning to her party to say it's undemocratic, it's unconstitutional, and this president is leading us into the minority. Um, House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries reported again that Donald Trump is trying to federalize these elections, that he's going to try and stop the midterm elections. And so he has authorized the Democratic Party to retain lawyers in many, many Democratic enclaves to have your lawsuits and injunctions ready. Um, let's talk about the Olympics. I'm absolutely enthralled by them. I love the skiing. I love the snowboarding. I love the ice dancing. I love the luge and the skeleton. I love speed skating. The stories are great. Um, very sad for the Ukraine skeleton rider today. He had a helmet that showed the pictures of athletes that have lost their lives in the war, the Ukraine Russian war. The United States Olympic Committee suspended him and said, you cannot race. Uh, I think that's disgraceful. Hunter Hess, with freestyle skier, the United States came out and said that he's disappointed in some of the things that we're doing as a country. And it's offensive to him, some of the things that Trump has said. And Trump came out and blasted the guy and used his favorite term, called him a loser. I don't think Donald Trump can run 10 yards. We know that he's private flat feet, that he's never served in the military, yet he humiliates people who served in the military. Lindsey Vaughn, superstar, folks. Love her. What she's done to change her body is so muscular. 41 years old. She's competed in 8 World Cup events this year after retiring 4 years ago. She's been on the podium 7 of the 8 times. She has 2 wins. Um, she tore her ACL 2 weeks before the Olympics, and she tried to race. And unfortunately, she got caught in the gate and she broke her tibia. She's already had 3 surgeries, probably going to have 2 or 3 more. And everybody's calling her selfish. She's not selfish. She earned a spot. She won to get into the Olympics. Nobody else lost a spot. Um, and she broke her tibia, which had nothing to do with her partially replaced knee and her other knee that has had ACL surgeries. She is an absolute warrior poet. Okay. It's great. JD Vance, he was booed at the Olympics when they showed his picture, and NBC kind of turned it off so that the public didn't hear him booed. Sonny Jurgensen, who was a quarterback before Joe Theismann, who I love from Notre Dame for the Washington Redskins, he died at 91 years old. Um, the lead singer for Three Doors Down died at 47 after a cancer battle. That's very sad. The Super Bowl, I did not like. It was a defensive game. I thought that all season long, the Patriots were fool's gold. Yes, Mike Vrabel's a great coach. Tennessee should have never fired him. Drake May's going to be a great quarterback. But they won a lot of games. They had the weakest schedule in the world because they were 2-14 last year. They won a lot of games by defense. Will Campbell, who's their left tackle, is an absolute bust. Led up so many sacks. Drake May had a horrible run up to the Super Bowl in the playoffs. Lots of fumbles, lots of interceptions, not a lot of yards. You will not see the Patriots back next year at the Super Bowl, folks. It's just not going to happen. Um, am I a Bad Bunny fan? No. Did I like Bad Bunny playing at the Super Bowl? No. Do I understand why the NFL picked Bad Bunny? I do, because it's an international game that they want. It's the most profitable, popular game in the world, not just in the United States, in the world. Next year, there's going to be 9 games played out of this country in the National Football League. One in Australia, where you're going to have to fly 23 hours to get there. I think the first team that's going to be outside of the United States, I would have said it was going to be in Canada, but it's not. It's going to be probably in Mexico City. Um, the Super Bowl wasn't enjoyable. Even the Seahawks, I do want to talk about the Seahawks. Unbelievable defense. Great story with Sam Darnold. Busted with the Jets, busted with Carolina, busted basically at the 49ers. Revived his career with the Vikings because of their coach. Even Justin Jefferson said it was the dumbest move um, to trade him. He went to Seattle. Good for him. He's a game manager. Is he as good as Joe Burrow? No. Is he as good as Patrick Mahomes? No. Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen? No. But he's a winner. Josh Allen doesn't have a Super Bowl. Lamar Jackson doesn't have a Super Bowl. Joe Burrow doesn't have a Super Bowl. Good for this guy, okay? Good for him. I have a lot of respect for him. Um, South Carolina, Mississippi State, Kentucky, and Arkansas were sent the worst news. They're the least watched football programs in the SEC. And that's with Lenora Sellers. Well, I take it, obviously when they lost 4 out of their first 5 games, that they probably weren't a draw anymore. But I really wouldn't put South Carolina in Mississippi State, Kentucky, or Arkansas. But evidently, the country doesn't like watching them. So that is pretty much what I have for tonight. Let's talk. Let's see what some of these listeners have said. Um, Dominic Chianti, what a great name. Good evening, Eric. So the odds are in Alex's favor. Do you think, though, when it comes to a new trial, they limit or just allow the financial crime pieces in? It's going to be a new judge. Um, the Supreme Court has basically said that they don't believe that the financial crimes are a reason for a motive or logically related under Rule 404 and 606 of the Rules of Evidence. Wouldn't surprise me if a new judge doesn't let that in and limits some of the scientific evidence about the phone and the bullet casings. But guess what? There's still a ton of evidence of murder of Alex, not uh, lying about being at the kennel for 2 years, saying that, there were 2 shooters, that executioners that came onto the property at night with no guns, and yet they broke into the house to steal his guns. Executioners aren't coming on the property without their own guns, folks. That his clothes were totally clean at 10 o'clock at night when he saw his wife lying on the ground dead and his son dead. Every one of us would have hugged our wives and our sons and screamed to the heavens and had blood all over us. We wouldn't have waited 42 minutes to call our son Buster and tell him that his mother and son were killed. We wouldn't have asked him to come home. We would have said, if there are killers out there, go to a police station. And most importantly, out of 102 jailhouse phone calls that were recorded, Alex never once screamed, "I'm innocent." What am I doing in here? What are you doing to find the real murders? All that scumbag wanted to talk about was football, deer hunting, and getting Buster back into law school. Which reminds me, I saw a note that Buster Murdaugh settled part of his defamation lawsuits against some of the production companies that did some of the documentaries that allegedly and falsely accused him of being gay and killing Stephen Smith. Good for him. I've always said that I have a soft spot for Buster. He didn't do anything to cause his father, his mother, to be killed or his brother. I understand that people are upset that he gave his driver's license to Paul to get beer on the night that Mallory was killed as an underage purchaser. My brothers did it for me, and I was at a book club review, and I spoke about my book on Thursday night to a lovely group of women in Chapin, South Carolina, and I said, everybody who's used a false ID to get alcohol when you were underage, raise your hand. There were 12 women there. Seven or eight raised their hands. So, yes, I do think the second trial is going to be shorter. It's going to be different. I don't think there's going to be a not guilty verdict. I think it'll be a hung jury. Um, that's what I originally thought was going to happen in the other trial. And that's why we work so hard to put that scumbag behind bars for the rest of his life. He's got 27 years he's got to serve in state prison. And then if he lives to be 80 years old, he's got to get out and do 40 years in federal prison for his guilty plea. So for the financial crimes. So it doesn't bother me that he's serving his life sentence or for being a thief. The public is never going to be victimized by him again. Diane McFarlane said, hi from Canada. Um, she said, sorry, but I will not travel to the U.S. with Trump as your so called president. I 100% agree with you, Diane. I'll come to you. I have a strong desire to go to Canada. I've been to Vancouver. I want to go ski Banff. I'm dying to go to Montreal. And I heard Toronto is one of the most beautiful cities in the world. So that's on my bucket list. And I think Renee and I are going to go to the summit. Linda Limerick said, can Van Bondi be disbarred? I do believe there are going to be proceedings against her law license when she's done. She's a disgrace to the position she holds. Francine Pastena says, I totally agree. Kathy Beach says, I can't even, she said, her blood is boiling. Our country needs God Almighty generally. I do believe that God needs to step in. He can't be sitting, or she cannot be sitting idly by and watching what Donald Trump is doing to our country and the Republicans and the sycophants that he has serving with him, Stephen Miller and some of the other people, what they're doing, Christy Nome, Pam Bondi. It's disgraceful. I want God to stand up. I believe he or she will before the end of his term. Um, Dominic Ciani said Gabby P's father was on Fox News this morning. He was pleading for them to post up a link for all the missing people. It's so sad news media will do that, but prayers for sure for the Guthrie family. Casey Odell said, I was heartbroken for Lindsey Vaughn. So was I. She is, again, a warrior poet, one of the greatest athletes we've ever seen. She's won 84 World Cup races. She's got nothing to be ashamed of. She's got a heart of gold. She's got guts of gold. She's tougher than any man that I know. Dominic Ciani said Drake Make is really good. I support him being local to the Charlotte area. This is coming from a Bills fan. I think he's going to be a good quarterback, but he certainly didn't have a good playoffs. Casey Odell, thoughts on Jay Lucas possibly getting on the South Carolina Supreme Court? I don't like it. I like Justice John Few. I went to school with both of them. They were both graduates in my class, both. Jay Lucas was great. Some people that, but no way does he belong on the Supreme Court. We went from Jean Toll, who was in the House of Representatives, to become Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, but she grew into the job over a course of 12 years. Jay Lucas is already going to be 70 years old. We'll have less than a year and a half into it. John Few has been a very good judge, and the only reason that he may lose his seat is because he voted against the abortion bill a couple of years ago. It's a disgrace. It's just another blight on South Carolina. Shelley Wagner Chavez says all the 12s in the Pacific Northwest The Super Bowl, plenty for you. Good job. Yep. I like the Seahawks. I like what they stand for. I liked when Pete Carroll coached. I like Marshawn Lynch, the Legion of Doom. So, with that said, everybody have a great weekend. Thank you. I appreciate you guys listening to me. You've kept me motivated. You get me smarter. I have to listen to the news. I have to read. I write stuff down. It's so good for me to do this, and I appreciate you listening to me. So, everybody, have a great evening. I love and respect you.